our monthly money check-in doesn't need to make us perfect, but in a way, it's more about like how do we continue to stay connected in this area of our life?
Right. We've always said, at least with our business, we want money to be a tool and a reason why couples stay together, not why they break apart. And this is one of the ways to do that, is because you have these intentional, deep, meaningful conversations about money that you don't have with anyone else. Maybe your financial planner, maybe you work with Dan and Natalie. But besides that, like, these conversations are a form of connection. And how great is it for those who are partnered that you have someone that you can create this intention with? Welcome to Money Dates, the podcast that makes money conversations with your partner feel a little less taboo. I'm Natalie Slagle, a certified financial planner, and I'm joined by my husband and business partner, Dan Slagle, also a certified financial planner. Say hi, Dan.
Hello.
In each episode, we'll share honest stories and practical tips to help you and your partner feel more connected and confident on your financial journey. So grab your drink, get comfortable, and join us for our Money Dates. Hi, Dan.
Natalie, how are you doing?
Great. Okay, this was a question that I had for you as someone who tends to use the male bathroom. So for context, we have this new workspace and there is an all-gender bathroom. And when I went in there, it's nice because I like go in and I'm like, this is no different than going to the bathroom in someone's house. Like, it's not like people's houses have a female and male and all-gender bathroom. Like, it's everybody uses the same bathroom. So anyways, and the stalls are very closed. So then I was going to the sink and there was a gentleman next to me and I just panicked because I thought, do men do small talk in the bathrooms? Like, a lot of times if I might be in a female bathroom and someone's wearing something that I would like and I'm like, hey, that's cool, or your hair, it looks awesome today. I try to say something friendly. But it felt weird doing that to a dude. So I wanted your take on it, Dan. Is there small talk in your bathroom experiences?
Having used the all gender bathroom, no, I haven't had any encounters for small talk.
Well, I'm not talking about in that bathroom specifically. I mean, you go, there's a gentleman's bathroom and a woman's bathroom. You go to the gentleman's. What happens in there? Do y'all talk to each other, or is it?
Yeah, for sure. It's
scruff or a
that's
grunt?
Exactly what I was going to say. It's very, very manly banter, more like, how you doing? Good.
Okay.
All right then. Bye.
So I should have a low voice and kind of grunt the next time I'm approaching a gentleman in the all gender bathroom.
Yes, and pronounce your words a little differently. Like, rather than like, how are you doing today? It's how you doing. Something like that, like Wilson from Home Improvement leaning over the fence, like channel his voice.
Okay. But seriously, is that a thing? Do men chat with each other?
I haven't really had that experience before. I think it's more get in, do your business, get out.
Okay.
That just seems to be what a bathroom is, right? If you want to have small talk, and you go find that person somewhere else in the place that you're at.
I suppose. Yeah, but you're just so close, like physically, like we're washing our hands right next to each other. And
I don't think there's anything wrong with small talk, saying hi.
Okay. I wouldn't be strange if I was like, I like your sports team on your hat.
Yeah, but if I know you obviously more than maybe the potential male you'd encounter in the bathroom, and I know that's just like forcing the small talk. I mean, even as you said it, it's just like, it felt so forced. Did you have an experience recently at our workspace where you try to like compliment a guy's soccer jersey, and
I did.
You were like, and the only team you really know is the team I support, Liverpool, and you were like, is that a Liverpool jersey? And he was like, no, it's not. It was probably their rival, and you were just like, he was just taken apart.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna not impress this guy, but I think a really good way to make small talk is to find something you can relate to or compliment someone. So I wanted to be like, I like Liverpool, or I enjoy watching it with my husband. That's the extent of that. And then showing like, hey, we have a common interest. I was like so pumped because I don't know too much about sports and sports teams. And I was all excited. I was like, sweet jersey, is that Liverpool? And he was luckily so friendly. And he was like, nope, it's not. This is from the German league. And I was like, wah, wah.
You could have carried with the conversation and asked more about, oh, what team is it?
Oh, well, I did. He was it did carry on. But to your point, sometimes maybe I not try too hard. At least I'm trying. At least I'm trying to make conversation with someone, which, yeah, this has been kind of a fun experiment. It's a co-working space. And so working around other professionals, maybe I'm just kind of out of it a little bit. And I need to still work on that muscle and my professional small talk. And I'm trying, Dan.
You are trying, and no one's faulting you for trying. I think it's amazing that you are trying because
Thank you.
From my perspective, I'm probably on the opposite side of the camp. I do feel like we have our own office now, and it still feels a little quiet in our wing because there are private offices, and not everyone's here on the same day. Let's not go too far down the rabbit hole in this conversation. Let's get to some of
too much toilet talk.
The main topic that we want to, toilet talk. There you go. Rather than small talk, it's toilet talk. There you go. Now you've just coined the name for small talk in the all gender bathroom.
Yeah.
All right, Natalie, what do you want to talk about today?
Today, we're going to talk about the monthly money check-ins and how to go about it and what it could look like.
Yeah, and this conversation stems from a lot of client conversations we've been having throughout the first month of the year. And asking clients a question, again, we phrased this question in a previous episode of, fast forwarding to December 2026, what would make you feel financially proud about the past year? Again, putting yourself in that future lens and looking back and thinking, okay, what do I need to start working on, or what do I want to see accomplished, or at least progress on some financial items? And throughout conversations, some of the recurring themes that I've been hearing is we want to, as a partnership for the clients that I'm referencing, have conversations more frequently on a monthly basis to just have some check-ins. Like, are we progressing towards the things that we set out at the beginning of the year that we want to accomplish? And so I thought, as we were preparing for this meeting, it would be really interesting for you and I to have a take on how would we go about structuring a monthly money check-in, framing it with a few questions for you all listeners to take and have with your partner. And you brought up an amazing point before we even started, before we hit.
Wait, stop. Let me say this part.
Because you're the one who brought it up initially. Okay.
Well, because when I asked, so we kind of always assign who's going to pick the topic, and then that person also kind of prepares more of the topic for the conversation. That's a little behind the scenes of the Money Dates podcast. Now, so Dan was in charge of this week's, and I asked him, what are we going to talk about? And he said, we're going to talk about doing monthly money check-ins. And my thought is, oh. And then I was kind of curious on how he was going to kind of create kind of the outline for this. And then I'm reading it and I was like, Dan, we don't do this. And he was like, you're right. We should probably say that. Like, we should probably say, hey, we don't do this. Dan and Natalie personally on our financial, if anything, I feel like we actually do it better on the business side and not so much on the personal side. So as an additional part of our preparation, we were like, why don't we talk about how we should do this? Like, we don't really do the monthly money check-in, and I have voiced to you, I want to check in about our personal financial situation more often. And so today, and to be fully transparent, we do not do this. I would like to do this. And so we're going to talk about how to go about it. And then I'm going to say, I like that, or no, I don't want that.
Right, because it's a quick question to our audience, right? Like, when was the last time you and your partner talked about money without any sort of tension or guilt or spreadsheets thrown across the room? And I guess when you say spreadsheets thrown across the room, I'm like, No one's throwing their computer across the room, but it could
No.
be.
I mean, maybe. Yeah. So, I mean, when was the last time we did? I think we had a really great deep dive back in, I think, early December or November. I've talked about that so many times because it felt so good. So we don't do it monthly. And I think it would be great if we did. So what would it look like? Like what would it look like? Or
You want me to lead this? Okay, I see where this is going. Yeah, I mean,
you're leading it.
let's do it. Let's get into how we are going to be doing our monthly money check-ins going forward. So we'll talk about what we ask, what we are going to avoid, and what ultimately we hope brings us closer at the end of this conversation. So my first rule with a monthly money check-in, I always like to start with cash flow, right?
Mm.
Like I think that's a really important area to discuss. And again, coming from this is stemming from conversations that I've had over the last month. That's typically where this gets brought up. Like at that point of our conversation with the client, they're like, we should be doing this more often. My first rule with cash flow is it's not meant to be a budget interrogation. This isn't meant to cast blame. And I don't feel like there should be any like, why did you buy that energy? You know what I mean? Like we are a team as we go through this. If you are doing this with a partner, I think it's even good things to go through yourself and ask yourself some of these questions, right? It's not, so to me, cash flow, some questions that I would consider asking right off the bat is with your partner, how are you feeling about money right now?
I like that question because the numbers are important, but the feelings are also important. And so that is a good, because maybe you're spending a lot and it feels good. Or maybe you're not spending a lot and that doesn't feel good. And this is what I talk about so much is a couple has the same, if they're transparent about money and they kind of share their collective finances, it's the same situation, but the feelings extracted from it could be completely different. And that happens with us a lot. So I really like that. Just really basic check-in. How are you feeling about our money right now?
Yeah. Yeah. I think then the next question you could consider asking is there anything money related that's been causing you stress lately?
Mm.
Right? Like opening up the conversation to allow your partner to, again, share how they're feeling about finances right now. And again, it's easy to go through day-to-day life. Maybe there's some just expenses that happen on a recurring basis, but getting to the root of, is there anything that's stressful right now? And it allows you to play a role, active role in being a sounding board and ultimately working to how do we relieve some of that stress that you're feeling for your partner?
Right. And I like focusing on the stress because it could be I'm stressed on how much is going out the door. I'm stressed on how much we're spending lately. It keeps it a little bit more macro rather than like you were saying the blame game on budgeting and things like that. And then digging, okay, I hear you. You feel stressed right now about how much we're spending. Well, let's dig into that. What about it is stressful? Is it the amount? And is that an ongoing thing? Or is it we just have a really expensive month, but we've prepared for this? This is why we have our savings. And obviously the balancing act of listening and not always giving an answer, but giving someone the space to address that feeling and then taking it from there.
Last question I would ask in this portion to start off your monthly money check-in is there something you're proud of financially this month? Right. So we talked about what's causing you stress. Well, we can also focus on doing a complete 180 and talk about what's giving you joy. What do you feel most proud about at this time?
Yeah, I think about how like my mind went to it doesn't always need to, I mean, this is a financial check-in, but maybe you're proud to financially be able to take time off of work, whether you're self-employed or you work for a company that gives you ample amount of time off. There's so many different facets of your wealth that you can be proud of and to not take it for granted.
Yeah. I think these three questions really can set the tone for the monthly money check-in. I think these check-ins, I don't even think we talked about it. They could probably be 20, 30 minutes through some of these questions.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So we're not talking about taking a full day or multi-day extensive amount of time out of your life, but they're really good questions to just set the tone for the conversation. Maybe alleviate some of that natural tension that may come into this type of conversation. And I feel like one of the biggest signs that, okay, this is going to be a good meeting, it is that tone that the two of you are bringing into the conversation. And I feel like if you can set the appropriate tone, oh my gosh, did you hear that?
No.
I felt like I was going to say tone. And
Your Minnesota accent?
yeah, which I should have just gone through with it rather than catching myself. Anyway, sorry, what I was saying is I feel like if your partner suddenly just like relaxes from hearing these questions, I think that's your sign to continue on with the conversation and know that it's going to likely be a more productive conversation as opposed to if there's a lot of tension built up, right? Like sometimes we don't want to continue the conversation if there is some tension because it may just go downhill from there.
Right. And this can inherently be, I mean, it depends. It depends on your situation and what you need to talk about in that month. But it can obviously have some underlying stressors or frustration or whatever. And so starting it with these types of questions rather than jumping into, okay, let's look at our income, let's look at our outflow. It sets the tone. It makes me think of in our team meetings, we do a couple check-ins and then we do a song and we call it the Monday moves because someone in the team, it's always random. It's just who's got a song to play that they want to share. And we play the song as a team and then we all just sit in our computer chairs and dance like the nerds we are. And that is a way of us setting a tone. We're going to talk about numbers. We're going to talk about our expectations. We're going to check in on our goals. Sometimes this is a stressful conversation, but there's something about music and moving your body that feels good. And maybe that's added here. It doesn't need to be, but I think there's just something about going into a conversation with kind of framing how you want to go about this, how you want to speak to your partner about it is going to help a lot.
I remember I told another professional once that we did that and their response was like, I'm so happy I don't work for your company. But, some people, I'm not like, we wouldn't force anyone on our team to participate in sharing a song.
I might.
Okay. All right. Well, I wouldn't if someone felt uncomfortable with it. Yeah. But, we're fortunate that the team we have, music is really important to our group and we get to expand our music palette and listen to a lot of different artists. And you can dance however you want to. Be just sitting in the chair, doing the mom dance where you're raising your fingers up and down, or you could fully get into it. Anyways, I don't want to spend too much more time on what we do for Monday Moves, but if you are interested, we do have a Spotify playlist capturing all the songs that we've ever done during our Monday Moves. Anyways, so let's go on to the next portion of this conversation.
Okay.
I think it primarily has to do with the numbers.
Yes.
Right. So now that we may, hopefully be in a calm setting, I think reviewing the numbers is obviously very, very crucial when we're talking about a monthly money check-in. So what to cover, right? So I think it's important for a household to think about, are there any income changes, right? And for most people out there, I'll say W-2, things are pretty consistent, right? So there might not be too much fluctuation in terms of what every paycheck is reflecting. I think
let me add to that though, because it's the beginning of the year and this tends to be bonus season. So I think a lot of our clients, a lot of listeners, they're getting bonuses. Maybe they're getting their quarterly stock vests, whatever it may be. So if income could very much, why are you smiling? Income could change. Why?
Oh, my thunder. I wasn't done with my thought. And I was going to say, however, we are in a time where there could be bonuses and stock compensation.
I didn't steal it.
See you rolling your eyes at.
You were just sitting there smiling and maybe your girl wanted to chime in, huh?
Cool. All right. That's totally fine.
Okay. So income it could be static and it could be variable, just depending on what happens. And then looking at after income, then of course, naturally, you look at expenses. And I feel like expenses, like sometimes they're never normal. There's always things coming up.
There are always things coming up, and every month there's just like maybe a major expense, whether that's, we're talking thousands of dollars, or if you have just a pretty steady month, it could just be, hey, we went out to eat and we had a larger restaurant bill this month, right? And then just being, again, aware of some of those changes. Actually, as part of the prep to this meeting, I actually went through we are recording this towards the end of January, and I went through our budget for the month and looked at what our major expenses were. Do you care to guess what those were for the month?
Let's see. If I'm going to do a category, I would just assume it's groceries.
No, we're not even talking about category. I want you to specifically think about larger expenses.
Medical?
Okay, fine. That was not included, but yes, that's obviously number one.
Okay.
All right, fine. Medical was number one, sure, but it's needed. Health is wealth. Hashtag.
No one
The
is
other
doing that.
the other major expenses were Costco was number two. We had a Costco trip in January, so that was the largest, one of the largest line items.
Oh, that was like
our expense.
as far as like the most expensive thing, the most
Sorry, I don't know.
One-time transaction was definitely Costco. And we only go to Costco maybe once a quarter. Maybe
We only go to Costco when your mom's in town. Let's be real.
I know. And she's coming back in town to help us move. And she's like, we got to go to Costco. I'm like, Mom, we just went. But maybe she's right, because then we can amp up our cupboards again. Anyways.
So Costco. And then number three was when your dad was in town for his birthday and we treated him to his birthday dinner, which is obviously awesome and totally worth it. It's just a noticeable larger transaction line item for the month of January.
Absolutely. And so the other thing that I notice with our clients, this happens a lot with, speaking of medical bills, is sometimes you forget to reimburse yourself from your health savings account or your flex savings account. Or, some of our clients, they like at the end of the year, they're doing their disbursement from their dependent care FSA. And I think it's interesting because not only does this create opportunity to just comb through, hey, what'd we make, what'd we spend, but there tends to be follow-up items. Like for us, the way our health share program works is that we have to go submit a reimbursement. It's not just automatically run through an insurance. And that's a task. That's a task that one of us has to do. And we need to get on the same page on, hey, have you done that yet? Who's going to do it? And so some of this is also just creating that opportunity to assign who needs to do what. And otherwise, especially as young parents, there's just so much going on, you just kind of forget.
Yes, I totally agree with that. So again, it's a good check-in to say what is left outstanding and who needs to accomplish what in order to get it done. Other areas I think you could talk about in this section, again, we'll follow up with a few questions that you and your partner can ask. I think looking at things like account balances is still important. Again, not like micromanaging and going into like the investment mix every month, but it's more like high level. How are we progressing? Like, what do accounts look like? Whether it's bank accounts, investment accounts, 401ks, even things like if you have an auto loan, looking at what's the balance with their current loan. The other thing could be taking a look at bills. How are things trending? And also thinking about, potential subscriptions to review, because as we know, those things can possibly get out of hand.
Yeah, and subscriptions, memberships, all of those.
Yeah, and I don't mean for this section to be let's hone in or zoom in on like every single latte purchase. It's more about like identifying the patterns. Again, it's progress, not perfection. And so some questions that I think we should be asking in this section, and Natalie, feel free to chime in as proposed questions come up on your side. I think the first one that I would ask in this section is did anything surprise us financially this month?
Yeah, I like that because sometimes I get surprised on, and we've talked about this before, on how how much money we were spending on Amazon purchases. And we made a really strong effort to take a step back from that. And so that was surprising because I don't monitor our spending. You keep me in the loop and you're saying, hey, we're on target or no, we're not. But I'm not really looking at the nitty gritty. So it's important to assess what is surprising. And do we need, sometimes it's surprising and there's no action. It's like, oh, cool. We spend a lot of money at this place. Because, a big thing for us is if you're saving enough money, then everything else can be spent. And who cares what it's spent on? Everybody has different preferences, different hobbies, different interests, different desires. Like, it doesn't always have to be, let's cut expenses, because if you're saving enough money, then spend the rest of it. We're only on this earth for so long. But sometimes I think the takeaway for us is it wasn't maybe you're going to know more about this, Dan, but it wasn't, oh, we're spending so much money at Amazon. It was, are these really the products we want to bring into our home? Is this really the company that we put a ton of money in? Could we be shopping local? Could we just get in the car and drive somewhere to pick this up instead of buying? It just made us question, is this spending in alignment with our values? And so I really like that question because the surprises that can come up financially could be just like unique surprises.
Yeah, totally. And again, it's asking the question, did we stay aligned with not only our values, but our priorities that we set out for the year? And ultimately, I think the last question I consider asking in this phase of the conversation is there a category that needs to be adjusted? And I think spot on with your point. For us, it was that miscellaneous bucket that you kind of just throw a Amazon purchasing because you don't really know what or recall what it was for, especially if maybe you weren't the one purchasing it. Or again, if you have multiple orders, it might be hard to account for what exactly it was. Same thing with like a Costco trip, right? I kind of always just group it into groceries, but the reality is you might have bought a speaker that was on sale. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, but that tends to always throw off some of the categories that we're looking at and things to just be aware of.
Right.
So I think with this section, if talking about money with your partner, especially as you get into some of maybe these like more granular details, if it feels like you're literally trying to diffuse a bomb, then try talking about patterns instead of like specific purchases. And again, aligning some of those patterns with priorities and household values.
What's a pattern when you say that? I'm thinking like, how would I, in a moment where I'm like frustrated with our spending and it feels like I'm a ticking time bomb or whatever, how would I go about addressing the pattern rather than saying, hey, Dan, you go and like do this and I don't like that. Or you're spending our money this way and I don't like.
Sure. I think so. With identifying a pattern, obviously, from my standpoint, you need to have some sort of data, right? Mm-hmm. So we've talked about at least one of you needs to be tracking expenses that are occurring. And then the platform that we use, you could take a step back rather than getting into the transactions. Again, you still need to record that. You have buckets or categories of total expense line items. And one thing how I identified the pattern that we had of we were putting too much into Amazon was I just grouped Amazon purchases as miscellaneous in the miscellaneous category. And what I identified over the past maybe 6 months or so was our miscellaneous line item. When you take a step back out of the actual individual transaction, that category was being overspent very heavily every single month. So then I decided to go into it and identified, hey, pretty much all Amazon. Mm-hmm. So that's how we identified the pattern. And then we challenged ourselves to say, to what you said a few minutes ago, is can we be thinking about how do we make these purchases more locally, or even, if it's a bigger box like retail store, can we do that locally as opposed to just like the convenience factor? And what we've noticed since that trend is that miscellaneous category has dropped dramatically because of that identification of past patterns.
Right. I also like a pattern that I've seen come up a lot with our clients is because not all of our clients track, their expenses to the extent that we do. I just ask, like, how often are you pulling money out of your savings account to replenish your checking? And sometimes it's like never. If anything, our checking account just keeps growing and we're sending money over to the savings. And it's like, great, that's all we need to know. Your checking account is growing. That means you're not spending everything that's coming in. Maybe there's a pattern there. Like we have the opportunity to invest, or you have the opportunity to spend or give more. But the other, a negative pattern that our clients have faced before is we're transferring money from our savings once a month. And then it's like, well, is it for an emergency? And it's like, no. And it's like, well, there's the pattern. You're making this transfer from your savings or from this other bucket. And in this, in this made up situation, maybe that's not ideal. Therefore, what do we need to change? Whether it's cash flow, investments, whatever it may be, what do we need to change to make a change to that pattern of depleting the savings account? So yeah, I like the idea of like just looking at kind of the high level patterns and then having a conversation of what needs to change.
Yeah. Let's talk about the next section of this conversation, how we would go about structuring it. To me, the next conversation should really stem from, again, we've talked about cash flow. Now it's just checking in on goals and progress, right? So aligning short-term goals that you have and long-term goals that you've, hopefully before even this conversation, you and your partner have identified what those priorities are going to be, whether it's a 2026 goal, or if we think about it, could be a 2027 or 2030 goal potentially that you're building up to. So I think in this section, I would focus on certain topics like what are our savings goals, debt payoff potentially if you do carry debt, travel goals. That's a huge one for you and I, in addition to some of the clients that we work with. Could be home goals, home project type goals, and then even just like personal and shared goals that you've set out for the upcoming 12 months. Those are some of the topics that I would have in this conversation readily available. And again, just tracking how you're doing, progressing towards these items. And I think it's also a really good point. I mean, we're in the first month of the year at the time of this recording. This conversation and the progress you're making is going to be a lot different if we recorded or had this conversation. Let's fast forward to June or September, right? Because you're going to start seeing more progression take place. And I think important questions to ask yourself, and in addition to your partner, and have conversations around. It's just a check-in on, depending on how things are progressing. Maybe there was a step back in income, whatever it may be. It's really just getting in alignment and asking the question, what goal or goals feel most important right now?
Right. I feel like savings goal, it's like, I want to save all the money. And you can't. And so there could be, you could have these goals, and arguably not every goal should be reached, right? Because then it's too easy. And so there could be things that you're making great progress on, and there's things that, we were hoping, or, a goal was to pay this down more aggressively, but things came up, medical expenses came up, or whatever. We decided to go on that trip and we didn't think we would. And so now it's not happening. So is that okay? Does that feel, what of these goals we made, there's been some updates along the way. So what does feel most important right now that we focus on and lean in towards?
Yeah. The next question I would ask is, are we still excited about the goals that we set? Now, again, we're in January, but fast forward a few months, there might be a pivot that you need to have. Pivot. Remember that episode? Who doesn't remember that episode? But there might be some changes that need to happen to some of the goals that you set out. Maybe one goal just doesn't excite you anymore, because that's just how life works, right? One of the founding values we have at our company is what, Natalie? You know what I'm referencing here.
What is it? Now I'm blanking. What is it, Dan?
It's all right. We're going through a whole exercise where we're realistically going
to adapt is to live.
Thank you.
I had the words in my head and they weren't. Boom. Of course. To adapt is to live.
Taken from what we believe was a quote from David Attenborough on a commercial for one of the Discovery Channel type shows that he always has narrated. And we loved it so much because the reality is life isn't perfect. You need to be able to adapt. That's the key to success, and one of the keys to success in our minds. And why not just make it a value of ours as our company? So Natalie, please say it again, but this time with an accent.
To adapt is to live.
Oh, amazing. I love hearing that.
Thank you.
What other questions should we think about asking in this portion?
Well, along with just the adapting is, of course, are there any goals that just need to be changed or reworked? I think that kind of goes with what you were saying before.
Yeah, yeah, and ultimately, if your goals don't match your real life anymore, like that's not failure.
Right.
You know, I think it's actually growth
Yes.
because you're learning to identify priorities and you're making decisions that are going to be in the best interest. Because you can't do everything at once. At the end of the day, you cannot do everything at once.
Yes. Yes. Let's go to the next segment because I'm actually kind of excited about this one because I think this could open up a can of worms for a couple outside of finances. But if it needs to be said, if there needs to be a discussion around it, then there should be. And I'm cheating and I'm looking at your notes. But this is getting a little bit, now we're getting back out of the technical side a little bit, out of the numbers. And the next question you ask is, did anything feel unfair or unbalanced this month? That's a good question for any couple, any household. I mean,
I'm surprised you think that because I actually second guessed how I wrote that down as we were prepping for this episode because I used the word, in this context, it's unfair, but based off of the word fair. And that word, we try not to use that word in our household.
Well, I got very upset when what was our fight about? I think it was during maternity leave and having a new baby and being a nursing parent and just having a very different role in taking care of our daughter. We both had very important roles and we did a great job. But there was just times, especially in the middle of the night, when the only thing she needed was me. And I can't remember how the conversation went, but I think you used the word fair and I blew up.
You did, and to your defense, it was likely warranted. I'll admit that live.
Thank you.
So maybe rather than unfair, just in case other couples have that negative.
Well, and people might be like, "What's wrong with that word?" And I think it was like, how do you be just to kind of again go off script a little bit, but it was like in that moment, how do you be fair when one's a nursing parent and the other? In my 2 a.m. mental mindset, when I'm up feeding my child, it just felt like, Dan, you're freaking useless in this moment. And I know you weren't, but my mamas know out there, it didn't feel like the setup was fair and that I was the one who had to do this and that. So that's why I didn't like the word fair. I don't know if now that I'm out of postpartum and I have survived that wave as have you. I don't know if I'm as sensitive about that word anymore. So anyways, going back to this conversation, did anything feel unfair or unbalanced this month? I think that it could be something like I picked up the kids from school or from daycare more than you did, or I was in charge of drop off and pick up more than you did. And that impacts my ability to work and that impacts my ability to bring in extra money or to get that extra bonus or, whatever it may be, or I'm burning more of my PTO. It's like just so much of your household makeup is surrounded by a financial impact of some way. And so this conversation I'm a little like, ooh, for people to have it, but I'm also like, go have it because that's a really important question. And sometimes I think the more often you ask this question to your partner, the more often it's probably going to be, no, things felt good. And it's because we ask this question so much that when it doesn't feel fair or balanced, that we're addressing it.
Yeah. And as you were talking and reading the question, some of these questions have been framed, even questions that we previously have recommended they may have been framed more as potential close-ended questions,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the question, did anything feel unfair or unbalanced this month? Very easily could be a no
Yeah. Move
or a
on.
yes. And that's
Mm-hmm.
move on if that's how you want to structure it. But I also think there's some power in phrasing it more as an open-ended question.
So
Right.
what felt unfair or unbalanced this month?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And just shut up and let your partner think it through. I'm not telling you to. I think a lot of times we tend to, especially with our partners, like tend to jump in,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's okay to have just silence and let the person think about it and reflect on it.
Right. Let's move to looking ahead.
Okay.
You're kind of getting to the end of your check-in, and the next thing you want to do is maybe cover the thing. We're talking a lot about what happened, and now we want to think about, well, what's going to happen and how are we preparing for it?
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Looking ahead at if the intention of this podcast is the monthly money check-in. So the idea is you're going to have another check-in next month. So let's plan ahead for the next month. So things to cover: upcoming expenses that you foresee happening over the next 30, 31 days. Actually, February has 28. Wow. All right. So things to cover in this section. Again, thinking about upcoming major expenses that you foresee around the horizon. Thinking about just like busy seasons of life or change, right? It could come up with, you're having a conversation, not so much in February. Well, February example could be Valentine's Day. Maybe you're taking your partner out on a hot date and need to bump up that restaurant budget. But even things like, spring break is around the corner. Think about summer vacations, kids going back to school in the fall. There's a lot of various seasons of the year where expenses just might increase. A lot of our people I've been talking to, Natalie, over the past few weeks have been implementing what we call a dry January, not from the alcohol standpoint, but from a financial standpoint, where it's like no major purchases except for the basics. And I love that. I love that. So there are opportunities within the course of a year where you can actually, it doesn't always have to be, oh, we're going to spend more money this month. I feel like that tends to be the case. But there could be opportunities within certain months where you say, hey, maybe we can pare back in certain categories because we're not foreseeing a lot of major expenses.
Absolutely.
And the last thing I would consider talking about is what is our primary financial focus for the next month, and just like honing in on that, making that a priority.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it.
So questions that could stem off of these topics. What does the next month require from us financially? Another one is, what's one thing we can do better or more intentionally? I had a conversation yesterday where it was someone saying, I want to focus more on experiences. I want to get a better handle on some of these variable miscellaneous expenses so I can afford to have more experiences with my children because they're getting older and these are really important to me.
Oh, I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And then the last one I would round out is, what's one small win that we can aim for? Again, taking some micro steps as opposed to thinking about like the larger end goal. What are some micro actions we can take to like build up towards it?
Dan, what would be a small win that you want to aim for in the month of February?
That's a really good question. And we've talked a lot about.
Thanks. I just got it from someone.
Oh, you got it from me. Okay. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Sorry, I'm a little slow. One small win for me is, we've talked about it in the past few episodes of, we have a move coming up here in literally a few days for us. And I think in February, I would like to, towards the end of the month, have things just settle down
Hmm.
financially, because it costs a lot of money to have movers. And, I've been buying boxes and tape and just some smaller expenses. And that I'm looking forward to just having things, again, more so at the end of the month, just kind of level out. So for me, a big win, and actually we haven't even talked about this.
That's because we haven't had a monthly money check-in, and we're going to start after this podcast. Okay.
That's right. So one thing for me, in order to have it be a smaller win, is mitigating some like unexpected larger expenses.
Sure. Like,
right? Because, well, when you move into a new home, it's like, oh, I want to buy a new couch. There's a lot of like big things. And I know we've like budgeted and allocated for it, but I don't want to all of a sudden it's like move into a new house and it's like another extra $5,000 has gone out the door on certain things. Like maybe there's a world in which we can space these things out to give ourselves some breathing room rather than like trying to do everything at once.
Sounds like we should have a conversation about this because maybe
let me ask you, do we have time for me to ask you a question?
Sure, ask me a question. It's our podcast. I think this one's going to be a long one, but why not? It's not like we are in these parameters of how long they can be.
No,
let's hear it.
We're literally also just having our first ever monthly money check-in live. So of course it's going to run a little longer.
Dan, this doesn't count. This does not count. We haven't even asked each other or looked at it, but we've created a really good outline, which by the way, I'm going to make sure that all of these questions and this outline is in the show notes for all of our listeners. So you can just copy and paste it, put it in an email, put it in a Google Doc, whatever you got to do. And then that's your outline for your first monthly check-in. Anyways, ask away, Dan.
Let me ask a dang question. What's one thing, Natalie, that we can do better or more intentionally?
I've said this before and I'll say it again. We can be donating money better. I was actually, Dan, you and I don't have a donor advised fund. And I was thinking like we could open one of those and just get money in it, like step one. And then it just doesn't feel, and then we just have this bucket of money that's yelling at us, hey, you need to disperse me. Like, yes, I'm in the bucket. Great, cool. But make that money do work for these great causes, especially in the world we're in today. So that's how I would like to respond.
That's awesome. I think we should totally do that. I love it.
Great
suggestion. All right, let's wrap it up. Let's reflect a little bit. So our money check-in, our future money check-in that we will have after this episode. I don't think the goal is to like continue, like not continue. That sounds very condescending for what I'm about to say. Our monthly money check-in doesn't need to make us perfect, but in a way, it's more about like how do we continue to stay connected in this area of our life. I think that's really, really important.
Right. We've always said, at least with our business, we want money to be a tool and a reason why couples stay together, not why they break apart. And this is one of the ways to do that is because you have these intentional, deep, meaningful conversations about money that you don't have with anyone else. Maybe your financial planner, maybe you work with Dan and Natalie. But besides that, like these conversations are a form of connection. And how great is it for those who are partnered that you have someone that you can create this sort of intention with?
Yeah. I look forward to our official first monthly money check-in that we will be having here shortly. And yeah, I think if you enjoyed the questions, as Natalie said, we'll include the questions in the show notes. And as you listen to this episode, don't be afraid to just go back and pause and pause certain sections and think about the questions. Think about, again, how you're going to maybe bring this up to your partner that this is something you want to do. Obviously, I think it's something that's super important when we think about your financial health going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan, for the conversation. To our listeners out there, if you've enjoyed the conversation, send it to a friend. We'd really appreciate it. And I look forward to our next conversation together.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, if you've enjoyed this episode and are looking for personalized financial guidance, schedule a free complimentary consultation using the link in the description below. Natalie and Dan Slagle are the founding partners of Fuse Financial Planning, a registered investment advisor. The information provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any securities. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Advisory services are offered to clients or prospective clients where Fuse Financial Planning and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For more information, including our disclosures, please visit our website at www.fusefinancial.com.